Hi, folks. Welcome to episode 125 of the Wealth on Any Income podcast. This is where we talk about money tips, techniques, attitudes, information, and provide inspiration around your business and your money. I'm your host, Rennie Gabriel. In past episodes, we spoke about how to understand the numbers from your business, how to measure the level of pleasure based on where you spend your money, how to track your money in 5 to 10 seconds, what determines how close you are to complete financial choice, and how to run your business without being in your business. Last week, we had as our guest Elena Zucker, the president of a management, training, and consulting firm for Fortune 500 corporations. Today, we have as our guest David Muntner. David is a visionary leader and founder of Renaissance Messaging. He fell into marketing because it's the one area of business that allows him to tap into his endless supply of curiosity. He's written marketing messages for over 100 top leaders and influencers in fields from law to witchcraft to science to finance and to cryptocurrency. In 2020, he had a vision to form a collective of curiosity-driven Renaissance men and women to offer radically different and more effective marketing strategies based on truth and authenticity. David has been a sculptor, a writer, a personal trainer, and a marketer, and currently enjoys writing and playing music on a wide range of instruments. David, welcome to the Wealth on Any Income podcast.
Rennie, so happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I'm stoked.
Yeah, great. Well, we're going to get right to it with some questions. So, got an idea of what you do and a little bit of why. Can you expand on why you're doing what you're doing?
Yes, I do. It's funny whenever I ask somebody, how are you? I'm always like, how are you? Who are you? Why are you? I may not ask myself that question enough. The why behind Renaissance Messaging is, first and foremost, I found myself in copywriting. I was writing marketing messaging for a lot of different individuals and, developed a skill set and reputation, and also fell out of love of the writing process itself. And then that was when I was able to basically connect and partner with a lot of other writers, copywriters in particular, who were world-class and loved it more than I did. And they were actually more talented at it than I was. And through that, realized that it's not just about a sales page. You can have the right words, and that's important for an email or sales page or something like that. However, it's not enough necessarily for a business to grow. A lot of times there's a strategy at the forefront, and then there's the other set of deliverables, such as the design and development and the email strategy itself or the social media. And so slowly but steadily, or not so steadily, Renaissance Messaging was more than just a copywriting company. And I would say at our most robust, in the past year, there were 60 team members. And so it kind of moved and expanded very rapidly. And that's cool. And one of the things within truth and authenticity and those pieces, I co-created a course with a dear friend and mentor, Yannick Silver, called Evolved Expression. And it was all about copywriting from a place of authenticity, and as opposed to deception, which is, it's almost like you're trained to. There's a lot of training around polishing turds out there, and I like my turds as much as the next person, but it's really good to just create something awesome from the start, and then to make sure that you're effectively positioning or promoting the best parts, in the same way that if you were selling a home or something, you want a professional photographer to come in and have the best angles, and it's not actually lying about it. It's just they have the right view so that you can present the home in a way that it deserves to be presented. Yeah, I like the idea of, with clients in particular, working very closely and having a team of supporters that really champions and believes in the person and the product. And so we have a maybe more comprehensive vetting process before working with any individual. But it's really because you have a team of supporters on board to help you from the start to kind of the end of, let's say, a funnel for promotion. And so that's something that's exciting to me. And then at the same time, the concept behind a Renaissance messaging is, being a Renaissance person, much like Leonardo da Vinci. and the idea that like we don't have to stop at, let's say you're good at painting, but then human potential has no cap. So it's like there's sculpting and there's creating devices for science, and there's even like I was told that Leonardo da Vinci at one point was the first person to create a jam session where it was just a lot of people improv jamming. So I like to share that Renaissance messaging is a pack of lone wolves, but a lot of Renaissance individuals, and really like marketers in general are individuals that have almost tried too many things or experimented with too many things. And then you're like, what do I do with all this information or insight? And so it's like a really good channel to apply an endless supply of creativity. And so that's really what got me started with Renaissance messaging.
Perfect. And I love the expression polish. It's more than about polishing a turd, because it's such a great fit when it comes to the messaging. The people who are completely inauthentic, they've got great polish on a turd.
Yes. The one other piece just to share is I found that it's the only way I could live with myself when it comes to being a musician as well. Is that like marketing is almost a skill set you could apply anywhere, and the dream is that in a way I get to apply the marketing machine to my music career as well, but then also to support other artists and individuals that may not have the same guidance around marketing, but have such a valid and powerful, I don't want to say product, but have something to share with the world. And so it's, kind of being like an amplifier in a way.
Fabulous. Now, as you know, I donate 100% of the profits from the work I do to various veteran and animal charities. And so it's important for my guests to talk about the causes or the issues or charities that they support. So tell me about yours. I know it has to do with Haiti.
Yes. So an organization that I've partnered with for a while is an organization called Hope to Haiti. In particular, they provide shelter, food, water, clothing to thousands of, would-be orphans in Haiti. And the founder, Scott, who is a dear friend and who had passed away a few years ago, founded this organization. And it, like, so many lives have been saved. And one of the things that Scott had shared is that in most charities and organizations, there's always some percentage of money donated that, goes to overhead costs or whatever else. And with Scott, it's literally all the money more or less goes to these children and, supporting initiatives. And so that's been near and dear to my heart. And yeah, and truthfully, like I can be more involved in the impact front. And so even a question like that or a reminder reinforcement is actually healthy. Because it's like 2023 kicking off the year, and on the, let's say, impact front, there's always more that I personally can do. So thank you for the reminder as well.
You're welcome for the reminder. And so, tell me about the kind of clients you typically work with. Now, I realize with 60 team members, there's a wide variety of areas of support, but typically, who are you looking to work with?
I'd say there are a few categories for our specialty, and one, let's say, is the business startup or big, beautiful idea, and or product that's been figured out, but that the messaging is not a match, and to where it's fun to almost create the brand from the ground up, without necessarily expectation or someone coming and be like, oh, it has to be this. So starting from that seed being planted to really create the most beautiful tree, that's a fun place for an organization. The other is when you already have a product that's been tested, it's converting, whatever else, and it's more about optimizing the messaging or adding a level of authenticity or feeling like there's no longer alignment in the brand or messaging itself. And so it's more of a refinement. So I know that's a bit general, but those are the two places where I feel we can add the most value. It's in, starting from scratch and really creating the system. And it's more of a long-term partnership, but those are really fun if we really believe in the product and the impact that can be created. Or it's in optimizing the funnel And when it comes to optimizing the funnel and, or realigning the funnel, specifically, it's like the needs include, either some form of sales page, messaging, even just a strategy around social media or sharing a message. For some organizations, we offer a brand Bible, and it's more of like, hey, this is alignment based on I call it the Inquisition for a particular brand or organization, taking it from there. And so, specifically, we've worked in so many different industries to where I don't really wish to pigeonhole this, other than to say, that at least you're comfortable investing in yourself when it comes to marketing. And also, that marketing it's never really a great idea to have a sprint in marketing, but more so that, the expectation is you have individuals that are going to work hard on your behalf, and you value the time of, all these experts kind of coming in on your behalf. And that it sometimes will take time to create long lasting results. And so I guess it's a little cryptic, but if this resonates, then obviously, if you're listening, then you would be more of a contender, let's say, for the betting.
Well, do you have any? I mean, there's some other questions I was going to get to, but I'll ask them a little bit out of order. And
Yay.
Give me an example of a case.
Master of Chaos is
Yes. Gosh, I can't. I think it was Eisenhower said something about plans are important and irrelevant.
Yes, absolutely.
So, do you have a case study or an example of a business, or which one comes to mind that started wherever, and where did they end?
Yeah. Well, I'd say, one in particular would be a coach that was helping with relationships. And for them, it was more of a specific optimization of a funnel. And, if we're getting really specific, it was within Facebook ads, really just optimizing that so it converted at a higher level. But in that process, it kind of opened up the doors of like, okay, well, we need to refine this messaging, and it's actually not as aligned as it could be with the value that's there. And so it was almost like the result was like optimizing Facebook ads, but the actual work included refining and realigning the brand itself. And that's when the right people were more interested.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So, yeah. So when he got clearer on that messaging, that's when the business, okay. All right. And so now what I was going to ask you is, what would you say, whether business or personal, was your biggest failure?
It's funny because there's such a long list that, so one thing in particular, a business partner of mine, a very intelligent individual, scientist, and one of my first forays into entrepreneurship, had a product that was like one of, I would literally world defining, like when it comes to satellites colliding with other satellites, that degree. We worked together and it was great. And at the same time, that was before I fully, let's say, understood the power and potency of marketing. And so it was like trying to start a match that's covered in water, basically. And you're like, wait, my wrist hurts and my hands are tired, and what's going on? And so even when we would quasi connect with the right people, nothing ever stuck, when in fact the product was world class and world changing. And that basically year and a half or so of time invested in that, and not necessarily seeing results, there was a kind of a marketing epiphany. And that was almost like what started before I even got into copywriting, just basically having that like utter failure of like, wait, the product's so good, why isn't anyone understanding it? And there was just such a degree of complexity to the product itself. And there wasn't, let's say, the care and time taken to simplify the message. So it was a no-brainer, because basically with marketing, it's like a glorious, either national game or international game of telephone, right? And you need to make sure that initial message is so clear so that it can pass the telephone test, where it's like three individuals passing and it's still the same potency of message. And we didn't have that. So that was one thing specifically related to marketing. I think another one, just for the music side of things, is that I was a drummer in a band for many, many years. I'm still the drummer in the band. We don't play out super often. However, I'm also a singer, and was basically just really shy. And, I felt like I didn't get the support that would have empowered me to, let's say, step up my game as a singer professionally. And in reality, that's all a bunch of baloney. Like, I think the failure there is that I didn't step into my power early enough, as a performer and singer. It kind of took 10 years of, let's say, slight inauthenticity as a musician, of being I like to say I was a backseat drummer in the band because I wrote songs like a backseat driver, but I felt more comfortable behind a drum kit. And so now, learning from that lesson, I'm kind of doubling down on my solo career as a musician. And obviously, there's a much higher degree of alignment there and fulfillment. The music industry is kind of an odd industry that I wouldn't necessarily recommend anyone go into unless you had no choice, which is like my case where just the passion is so strong that it's like I don't really have a choice. So that would be another failure lesson. I have one more. Can I share one more?
No, because we're running out of time, and I want to know what's a.
We could have a 24-hour podcast about Dave's failures if you want.
Yeah, we could do them in segments of 15 minutes each. Yeah. But I want to have a way for people to get a hold of you if they're interested and want to know more. And I know there's something that you provided to me. I think it was on Spotify. Let me take a look.
Yeah, so there's actually a modified free gift. So one free gift just is music, because it's essentially free on either Spotify or anywhere else. And if you're curious about an entrepreneur who's also doubling down on music, Davey Harris is a place to go, because that music is free and I work really hard on it. And not that matters, but I think that you'll receive something from listening to it. That's the intention of these songs in particular, that they serve as a catalyst in your life. The other thing, which may be more applicable to some of the individuals listening right now, would be a free messaging session for myself or a team member. And with this, there's normally a price tag associated with this particular service, but we would be acting as marketing consultants and doing an audit of, let's say, a sales page or a funnel or something along these lines. And I would say the first 5 people that reach out to david@renaissancemessaging.com, I will have myself or a team member will reply, and we will get you scheduled in for your complimentary marketing consultation. And the intention is that you get thousands of dollars in value for this consultation. That's really our intention and promise here. And so we're looking under the cover or under the hood of the car for unseen fruit. I like to share that we're detectives of low-hanging fruit, and we look to find it somewhere.
Perfect, David. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'll be sure to put the links in the show notes so people can just click on them and they can get right there. And
Great.
Well, thank you for being on the show, David. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for the invitation. This is fun. You're a very interesting, fabulous person, and it like energy speaks louder than words a lot of times. And so you give off a good energy to where that's even a gift for me just being on this podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. And for anyone else who's listening, if you'd like to know how books, movies, and society programs you to be poor and what the cure is, then log on to wealthonanyincome.com/TEDx. You'll get to hear my TEDx talk and can request a free 27-page roadmap to complete financial choice and philanthropy, and receive a weekly email with tips, techniques, or inspiration around your business or your money. And if you'd like to see how you can increase your wealth and donate to the causes that touch your heart, please check out our affordable program, Wealth with Purpose, also on the Wealth on Any Income website. To my listeners, thank you for tuning in. You can listen to the Wealth on Any Income podcast on your favorite platform, and please rate, review, and subscribe. And until next week, be prosperous. Bye-bye for now.